The grand dining room of the New York five-star restaurant shimmered under the crystal chandeliers, a symphony of soft piano music and hushed conversation. Glistening silverware caught the light, reflecting the faces of the city's elite. Into this opulent tableau stepped Akiko Nakamura, her simple, elegant kimono-style dress, a stark contrast to the surrounding extravagance, yet worn with an undeniable air of quiet dignity. She was escorted to a secluded corner table, her silver hair catching the ambient glow, a figure of serene power. A ripple of whispers followed Akiko to her table. Patrons murmured about the renowned Japanese millionaire, her business acumen legendary, but as Akiko settled, a subtle unease flickered in her eyes, almost imperceptible. Her hand, though steady in public, found the delicate pendant at her neck, clutching it with a slight, almost nervous tremble. The facade of power, it seemed, masked a deeper, unspoken vulnerability. Marcus, the restaurant manager, approached with a practiced smile and the evening's menu, a crisp white canvas of culinary delights. He greeted Akiko in polished English, his tone impeccably polite. Akiko attempted to respond, her lips forming words but only fragmented, heavily accented English emerged, halting and unclear. Marcus's smile faltered, replaced by a polite but unmistakable blank stare. The language barrier, a formidable wall, had just made its first appearance. Akiko tried again, her brow furrowing with effort, but the words refused to coalesce into coherent sentences. The initial awe from surrounding diners began to dissipate, replaced by a growing discomfort. Some patrons, catching glimpses of the struggle, started to hide subtle smirks behind their hands, while others exchanged uncomfortable glances, their earlier admiration shifting to a more critical, even pitying gaze. Marcus, now joined by a few equally bewildered servers, attempted different tactics. They spoke louder, pointed frantically at pictures on the menu, their gestures growing increasingly exaggerated. Akiko, however, only grew more visibly distressed, her soft, apologetic sounds and gentle headshakes conveying a profound helplessness. The situation felt like a rapidly tightening knot, frustrating for the staff, agonizing for her. Alone at her table, despite the bustling room, Akiko's composure began to crack. Her eyes, once sharp and confident, now betrayed a deep, aching loneliness. She felt utterly isolated, trapped not by bars or chains, but by the silent, invisible prison of incomprehension. All her wealth, all her power, could not buy her a single word of understanding in this foreign land. Tears welled, threatening to spill, a raw testament to her despair. Her head bowed. Akiko's hands trembled visibly on the white tablecloth, clutching the worn pendant at her throat as if it were a lifeline. It was a desperate, silent plea, a wish for connection that transcended words. The situation had reached its peak. She was adrift, utterly alone, her dignity slowly eroding with each passing, silent moment. Across the vast, elegant room near the swinging kitchen doors, Lena Petrova, a new waitress with a habitually messy ponytail, moved quietly, clearing glasses. She was accustomed to being overlooked, a quiet observer of the opulent world she served. Yet, the commotion at Akiko's table, the rising tide of frustration from Marcus, and the millionaire's palpable distress did not escape her observant gaze. As Lena watched Akiko's bowed head and trembling hands, something deep within her stirred. It was more than just professional concern. It was a profound sense of recognition. The look of isolation, the helpless despair in Akiko's eyes, echoed a familiar pain. A memory, long dormant, began to surface, pulling Lena from her humble duties into a sudden dawning empathy. Her mind drifted back to a small, warm kitchen filled with the aroma of miso soup and green tea. She saw herself as a child, sitting patiently by the side of her Japanese grandmother, her grandmother, who, despite decades in America, had clung to her native tongue, finding comfort and identity in its familiar sounds. Lena remembered the endless hours spent practicing pronunciation, the quiet pride in her grandmother's eyes when Lena finally mastered a difficult phrase. She remembered the frustration of impatient relatives who couldn't understand, and the quiet satisfaction of bridging that gap, translating not just words, but emotions, for the woman she adored. That kitchen, those lessons, had forged a deep, unbreakable connection to her heritage. Back in the present, the internal debate raged within Lena. She glanced at Marcus, her manager, a man who strictly enforced the restaurant's rigid protocols, especially when it came to VIP guests. Intervening at such a high-profile table was unthinkable, a potential career-ending move. Yet, her heart, a quiet but insistent drum, urged her forward. The memory of her grandmother, the raw vulnerability in Akiko's eyes. It was a profound sense of duty, an empathy that transcended rules. She realized, with a sudden, overwhelming clarity, that she might be the only person in this entire room who could truly help Akiko. Gathering every ounce of her courage, Lena took a deep breath, her jaw firming with resolve. She placed the tray of empty glasses down with a gentle click and walked purposefully towards Akiko's table. Her unexpected movement drew immediate attention. Diners paused mid-conversation, forks halted mid-air. Staff members exchanged bewildered glances, and Marcus, his back initially to Lena, turned, his expression a mixture of surprise and growing confusion as he watched his quiet waitress defy unspoken protocol. All eyes now were on Lena. Lena reached Akiko's table, her steps soft but steady. She gently bent down, bringing her face level with Akiko's bowed head. Her gaze, warm and filled with understanding, met the millionaire's wide, disbelieving eyes. Then, Lena spoke, her voice a soft, clear whisper that cut through the silence of the room, a bridge built of sound. "Goshujin-sama, nanika o tetsudei shimashou ka?" "May I help you, madam?" The words, spoken in fluent Japanese, hung in the air, an unexpected miracle. Akiko's eyes, already wide with surprise, shimmered, then welled with tears, not of despair but of profound, overwhelming relief. A wave of emotion, raw and pure, washed over her face, transforming her rigid posture. Her lips trembled. And then, for the first time all evening, a radiant, genuine smile bloomed on her face, a silent, joyful sigh escaping her lips. The sound was barely audible, yet it resonated through the sudden, stunned silence of the room. The entire dining room had fallen into a hushed stillness, all eyes fixed on Akiko's table. Patrons who had moments ago hidden smirks now leaned forward in awe, witnessing the extraordinary transformation. They watched as Akiko, her voice rich with gratitude, began to speak softly in Japanese, a light, relieved laugh bubbling up. The sheer joy radiating from her, contrasted with her earlier distress, was a powerful, humbling spectacle. Words poured fluently from Akiko, a torrent of relief and explanation, and Lena responded with ease, her soft Japanese weaving a tapestry of understanding. Lena then turned to Marcus, translating Akiko's meal preferences and specific requests with clear, concise English. Marcus, still slightly stunned, nodded, taking notes, his previous frustration replaced by quiet respect. With every translated word, Lena ensured Akiko's comfort, her gentle, attentive service fully restoring the millionaire's lost dignity. Lena remained by Akiko's side whenever needed, a quiet, reassuring presence of support. The other patrons watched, no longer with judgment, but with thoughtful contemplation. They realized in that moment a profound lesson. It was not wealth or status that brought true comfort and connection, but a simple, quiet act of compassion, a bridge built with empathy. Akiko, accustomed to being admired for her fortune, her influence, and her sharp business mind, understood tonight was profoundly different. The admiration she typically received felt hollow compared to the warmth radiating from Lena. She realized that the simple, priceless gift of human connection, the ability to be truly seen and understood, was far more precious than any material wealth she possessed. It was a humbling, yet deeply enriching revelation. As the evening drew to a close, Akiko prepared to leave. Before her escort arrived, she reached out, taking Lena's hand in hers, holding it with surprising strength. Tears, silent and profound, slipped down Akiko's cheeks as she whispered words of deep gratitude in Japanese, words that only Lena could understand. It was an unspoken promise, a powerful emotional farewell that transcended the boundaries of their roles. Lena, in turn, offered a soft, respectful bow, her eyes reflecting Akiko's profound emotion. After Akiko was respectfully escorted away, the restaurant, which had been so hushed, now buzzed with hushed conversations. Patrons were either humbled by the experience or inspired by the quiet waitress. Marcus, Lena's usually strict manager, approached her, his expression softened by a rare, almost imperceptible nod of approval. He recognized the extraordinary value of her actions, an empathy that outshone any protocol. The very air of the restaurant seemed to shimmer with a lingering sense of wonder. A few weeks later, Lena was handed a mysterious, elegant envelope at the restaurant. It was addressed to her in beautiful, flowing script, and bore the return address of a prestigious cultural foundation. Curiosity mingled with a hint of wonder as Lena examined the fine paper, her mind racing with questions about its contents. What could this possibly mean? Later that evening, in the quiet solitude of her small apartment, Lena carefully opened the envelope. Inside, she found a handwritten note, exquisitely penned in Japanese, from Akiko Nakamura herself. The note expressed boundless gratitude, inviting Lena as an honored guest to a cultural foundation event. But then, Lena's eyes widened further, trembling as she read the enclosed official document. A full scholarship, covering not only her language studies at community college, but promising continued support for her education beyond. Overwhelmed, Lena cried tears of pure disbelieving joy. This was more than just financial help, it was profound validation. Her small, humble act of kindness had given her belief in herself, confirmation of the value of her empathetic heart, and a newfound pride in her heritage. It was a testament to the unexpected, life-altering rewards of simply being kind. Years later, Lena Petrova stood on international stages, no longer a quiet waitress, but a respected professional translator. She traveled globally, her confident, clear voice bridging cultures and languages, fulfilling a dream she once thought unattainable. She never forgot that night, Akiko's tears, or the powerful truth it revealed. Dignity and kindness, extended freely and without expectation, are indeed more valuable than any riches. In a quiet moment of reflection, Lena often held a small, elegant pendant, perhaps a subtle gift from Akiko, or simply a reminder of her cherished grandmother's influence. She reflected on how that single act of empathy had not only changed her own life, but continued to inspire her mission to connect people across all divides, proving that the language of kindness is truly universal.